our next reading unit, which we're really going to start once you guys get back in person next week, is nonfiction and using nonfiction for research. But we didn't want to start the unit this week virtually and then have to kind of try to figure things out when you get back in person next week. So we are going to kind of just do a little introduction to nonfiction this week and do a little bit of nonfiction reading for the week. And then we'll start the actual unit that goes with the, oh, my video wasn't on, sorry. We'll start the actual unit next week when everybody gets here, okay? So Cynthia, can you nice and loud read our goal?
To learn about nonfiction and what to do before reading a nonfiction book.
Very good. So thank you. So the bottom you'll notice it says, as readers, we have to open our reading world and make sure we're reading books from all different genres, right? It's great to read your favorite kind of book all the time, but you will never know if you enjoy reading other kinds of books if you're not trying it. So I know nonfiction isn't everyone's favorite. Nonfiction is definitely my favorite type of reading, and we're going to be looking at that and what we could do to help find a good book that we want to read from the very beginning when it comes to nonfiction, all right? So let's first talk about what is nonfiction. Anybody want to raise their hand and share? What do we mean when we say a book is nonfiction? We should have some volunteers to do this because I know that a lot of you knew what fiction was. Fiction was a made-up story. So what is nonfiction? Michael?
Not fake. It's real.
Yeah, it gives you information, right? It explains or informs or teaches you information, or it persuades you using facts. But nonfiction is real. Everything we read in nonfiction is either going to be a fact or it may be a story, but that is a true story written based on what actually happened in real life, right? So nonfiction gives you information. It teaches you something as you're reading. So what are some examples? What are some books you might read about nonfiction? We're just going to throw out some examples, and I'm going to write them up on the board as you share some of those. What are some kind of examples of nonfiction books? I think that's Ania. Ania, go ahead.
I like the book about Rosa Parks.
Yeah, we can say like, that's called a biography, right? Oh, that's a book about someone's life. So biographies are examples of nonfiction. What are some other types of nonfiction books? Cynthia.
Planet.
Say it one more time.
Planet.
So books about planets. So we're going to say informational books, right? So those are books that teach you facts, or like really they try to teach you things. So informational books. And those usually have a specific topic, right? It could be planets. It could be all about a shark. Could be a book about the weather, right? Those things. CJ.
History.
So yeah, history books. Good. What else? Derek, did you have your hand up? Go ahead, Derek.
Charlotte Wells is a fake.
Morning, staff. Pardon the interruption. We still have students trickling in. We will start.
Hang on just a second, Mr. S.
Week out here.
Making an
About
announcement.
2 minutes. We'll start the announcements in 2 minutes. Thank you so much.
Okay, go ahead, Derek. Sorry, Derek. Mr. S came on the loudspeaker. We couldn't hear what you said. Can you say it again?
Charlotte Wells is a fiction book.
Oh, yeah, like something like Charlotte's Web. Yeah, that's fiction. That tells a story that's not true. But we could say true stories, right? So trying to think. That's called narrative fiction, true stories. I'm trying to think of one I've read, but I can't think of one off the top. Oh, hang on. I'll be right back. So this book right here, Come On, Rain, is a true story about a little girl that really happened. So it's not fictional. It's an actual story that really did happen. So because it really did happen, that would be a narrative. It tells a story like a fiction book, but it is nonfiction. It really happened. So we would say true stories. I'm going to put narrative underneath because maybe you tell a story about your family vacation, right? If you wrote a story about your family vacation and it all really happened, that would be narrative. It would be tell a story, but it'd be nonfiction. Another one that we might not think of all the time is how-to books. So books that teach us how to do something. So that could be like a cookbook. That could be like a book that teaches you how to play guitar. Things like that are actually nonfiction. And then one other thing that you guys probably won't think of would be persuasive essays, which are essays that try to get you to think or act a certain way. So let's say I wrote an essay about why we should or shouldn't wear school uniforms. And I try to get you to think we should wear school uniforms. And I give you facts and details and information. Even though I'm trying to persuade you, that's still nonfiction because I'm giving you true information to read about, right? So those are all kind of examples. There's a lot of different subcategories of nonfiction. And we'll talk more about those as the unit goes on. But I think we've got a good idea now of what nonfiction really is, and we're ready to move on. So how does nonfiction look different from fiction? Denise, can you read that first one at the very top?
There may
be
chapters, titles, and sentence heads that preview information.
Yeah, so like, for example, I have a book called The Revolutionary War in my hand, right? And so there may be different sections that title the chapters that preview what you're going to read about. So like this one says, this section of mine says too many taxes, right? So that's a preview of what to read in that section. Or this one, and the book says the Battle of Concord. Well, it's previewing that I'm going to read about the Battle of Concord. Usually in chapter books that are fiction, it'll just say the chapter number with like a little thing, but it doesn't really tell you information about what you're going to read, right? So those little headings or titles or sections of the chapters give you a preview. Corbin, can you read the next one? Each page.
Each page has words in a
Variety
of
Font.
font and type size.
Thank you. So if you look in this part of the book, you've got font that is like under the picture, this caption that's blue. There's a different size in the rest of the book. You've got this word that's bold that makes it a little bit darker. So you may see a different types of font or styles. And then the last one, Alex J, can you read the last one?
Bold or italic fonts may be used to signal important words or phrases.
Thank you, sir. Yeah, so you may have words that are printed in bold or italic fonts to show you that's a key word or a word that you might want to look up, or maybe they have it in the glossary in the back to teach you what that word is, right? But they have these different fonts on different pages to kind of show you the importance of different things when you're reading to learn facts. Another thing is how graphic aids are used, right? And I'm going to go ahead and read this page. So maps, charts, diagrams, photographs, all that stuff, they're actually usually included to illustrate or summarize information, right? They may have captions or labels that you can get relevant information about the picture. Sometimes in nonfiction, the author really wants you to understand more about a topic, so they put those pictures and those graphics and those other things in the text to give you a little bit of extra information or help you learn more about what you're reading, right? Could you imagine if you're reading a book about the Revolutionary War and they're talking about the battle of, here, for example, the Battle of Yorktown. Well, they have a picture of the Battle of Yorktown that helps you kind of understand more what was actually going on than just reading about the battle. When you get older, sometimes you read longer, bigger history books. They don't have as many pictures because by then you have a better grasp of picturing things in your head and being able to understand what complicated words mean. But when we're younger and we read nonfiction, the authors like to include those graphic aids in the text in the book to help kind of assist you in understanding more about what you're reading. And they can be super important in helping you get a better understanding of a nonfiction book. How is vocabulary different, right? You guys may see a lot more words that you're unfamiliar with, and they may have a lot of longer multisyllabic words like it says photosynthesis, right? That are difficult to read and pronounce. That's because a lot of time nonfiction books have vocabulary that is very specific to what you're reading about, right? So if CJ's reading a book about the Civil War, there may be some complicated book words in there that are related to the Civil War that you wouldn't normally know or read, right? So it's important when you run across those words to try to figure out what they mean, or maybe look up and see if there's clues about it other places in the book. Like we said, there's sometimes those words that are in bold, they have a glossary at the back that shows what those words mean. You can see this book right here has a glossary where it says what the words are and what each of those words mean in the back. So you are going to probably come across vocabulary words that you don't know all the time or you haven't learned yet in nonfiction books. And that's because they're very specific to what they're teaching about. There may be difficult words in there that it's important for you if you want to really understand what you're reading to try to figure out the meaning of those words. It can be hard. What do we know about nonfiction? Let's see, who have I not heard from yet? Guadalupe, can you read this section in white here, right there? There is a great.
There is a great deal of information to be understood and remembered.
Yeah, so like with reading fiction, it was really important that we took notes to kind of help us keep track of what we were reading and where we were in the story. But you could probably keep going and remember a lot of it. You weren't reading a fiction book to get information. When you're reading a nonfiction book and you're trying to get information, you are really wanting to pay a lot closer attention to all of that stuff that you're reading because you're usually reading it to learn something, right? Most of the time we read fiction books to kind of entertain us and be interested in the story. If you pick up a nonfiction book, you're trying to learn information, and it's important that you've got to pay like great attention to that, to those details, and make sure you're recording things and writing them down because it's going to help you understand your book. So before you read nonfiction, today we're going to look at the steps on picking a nonfiction book that's going to be interesting to you, right? So when you're going to pick a nonfiction book, you need to ask 4 questions. And I'm going to model how to do this. This is what your assignment's going to be today in reading, is going to be to go in and try to find a good nonfiction book that you want to read. So you need to ask yourself, what made me pick this book? Why did I pick this particular book, right? And then you're going to look at the title, and you're going to think about, what do I already know about this subject or this topic? What am I trying to figure? Like, what do I know? And then I'm going to go to the next question. What am I hoping I want to learn, right? If I pick up a book about sharks, am I just picking it up because I want to think it's interesting, or am I trying to learn information? And then the last question is, do I think the book needs to be read from the first page to the very last page like a regular fiction text, or can I kind of skip around? Why or why not? All right? So I'm going to show you how to find a book on Epic because we don't have these nonfiction books in your hands yet. So you're going to be doing this on Epic today. All right. And we're going to go through each of those questions and how to answer those questions about your book. So can everybody see my Canvas page now? Yes? No answers? Nod your head yes if you can. Thank you. All right, so I'm going to go to Monday, and I'm going to go to reading, okay? And then Epic is right over here on the menu every time. Try out Epic, and then it's going to ask, if you've already been on Epic, I don't know, some of you guys, it may not ask for the code anymore. Some of you, it may still, but you can always click down here. The code is right there. And I'm going to log in as a guest student. All right, and so when I'm searching for a book, I'm going to type in a keyword. So like mine was chemical reactions. So I'm just going to type in chemical, and I'm going to search chemical, and then I'm going to choose nonfiction to be sure I'm getting the right one. And there's my book right here, Chemical Reactions. Found it. All right. It's got the level. Make sure, you guys can always go back into, if you want to search by the level, maybe if you want to go into Epic and you want to say, okay, instead of searching by author, title, a keyword, let me try sorry. How do I get back to the home page? Well, let me go. Okay, so I could go to F and P, right? And I could pick a range. I could say I'm going to go to P to S, and then I'm going to type in nonfiction. Uh-oh, I'm typing nonfiction, right? And then go to reading level and pick P to S, and then all the nonfiction from P to S will come up, right? So I'm going to go back and I'm going to type in my chemical, though, just because I knew I wanted to do chemical reactions. So I'm on my book. So now I'm going to ask myself that first question, all right, that I've picked out this book. Why will this not let me move? There we go. I'm going to ask myself that first question. What made me pick this book? All right, and I'm going to answer that question. I enjoy reading about science. I'm going to say, we just learned about chemical weathering. And I wanted to read more. Right? So you don't have to pick a science book. You can pick a book about history. You can pick a book about a person, a biography. You can pick a book about an animal, but you just need to make sure you have a reason that you would pick that book on Epic, right? Then I'm going to go number 2. And it says, look at the title. What do you already know about this subject? And I'm going to say, I know, you know what, y'all? Sorry, I'm going to type. It's just way faster. I'm going to say, I know chemical reactions happen all over the earth every day. They can cause some really cool or really scary results, right? So that's just a little thing. I don't need to type every last fact I know about chemical reactions. Like I know a couple other ones, but I don't need to type everything out that I know, every single fact, just like the basic idea, right? And I'm going to go to number 3. What are you hoping to learn from this book? Be specific. So I'm going to say, I am hoping to learn what causes chemical reactions and find out more about some of the chemical reactions that happen every single day around me. So there's my answer number 3. That's what I'm hoping to learn when I read that book. And then the last thing I'm going to do is go to number 4. Do you think this book needs to be read from the first page to the last page? So if I'm reading a story about someone's life, give me a thumbs up or thumbs down. If I'm reading a story about someone's life, do you think it would be a good idea for me to read the whole book from beginning to end? Thumbs up or thumbs down. Thank you, Ania. Thank you, Guadalupe and Corbin and Denise. I can see you guys showing me. Alex J. Yeah, probably a good idea if I'm reading about someone's book, life, to read the whole book. If I'm reading about chemical reactions and I want to find specific facts and they have headings, do you think I need to read every last page of that book? Probably not. I can probably find a section that says what causes chemical reactions. So I'm going to say in this book, I think I can skip around to find the information I want to learn. I don't think I need to read every single page in order, right? Now, there might be some books where it is a good idea. If, you know, I know that CJ likes history, so let's say CJ is reading a book about, I'll go back to the Civil War, and he wants to know about like what happened in the Civil War in order, in time order. He's probably going to want to read the whole book from the beginning to the end. If he wants to know about a certain battle, let's say he just wants to read about the Battle of Gettysburg, CJ might just find a section in the book that's about the Battle of Gettysburg, right? And do that. So the way you read nonfiction is completely different than the way you read fiction, because unless you're reading a book that's a true story, Most of the time, nonfiction just gives you information. It's not something you have to read as a story in order from beginning to end. You can just find the information you want. It just kind of depends on what it is you're looking for and what you want to read. All right? Moving forward, your job today, when we log off, is going to be to log on to Epic and find a nonfiction book you want to read, just like I did today. You're going to type the title of your book, and you're going to answer those 4 questions about before you read. So if you go to your Canvas page, and you go to Monday and you click on reading, you should have Intro to Nonfiction as your assignment, and it's got those 4 questions right here. So make sure you're answering all 4. All right. So make sure you tell me the title of your book and all 4. In small group today, when you go to meet with me or Miss Weibel or Mrs. Fleischer, we're going to help you find a book to read. Okay. So we're going to spend some time in small group. We're just going to help you get that process on Epic and help you think about the answers to those questions. Okay. So that's your job in small group or independently on your own, whichever you're doing first. If you're meeting with me or Miss Weibel at 9:40 and you want to already have picked a book out and have us help you answer some of those questions, we can help you with that too. All right. So your job is that, and then try to make sure you get 2 Lexia lessons done. Okay. Because most of you guys, it shouldn't take you this whole time from now until math to get your book picked out and answer those 4 questions.
Are we getting back on?
Oh. Yep. So small group's going to be at 9:10 or 9:40, just like it has been. If you're not in my group or Miss Weibel's small group, we'll see you at 10:20 for math. All right. Does anybody have any questions before we go?